Thank you, Colin. So I thought I would read a little bit from both A Night for the Lady and Halfling Spring. It's all poetry all the time. All right. How's that? Is my voice deeper and more resonant? Plus I can see you all better. Okay, so I've been really enjoying my visit to Ottawa. I'm not sure how long it's been since I've been here, but a few years at least. And very happy to see some old friends and also meet new people. But I didn't spend a lonely afternoon planning out exactly what poems I would read in what order. So we'll just start off slow and get rolling. Well, I'm going to read a couple of odd poems for you. The first one is called Desdemona Durga. So in a conversation with someone, they made reference to this play, this Shakespearean play, and somehow likened me to Desdemona, which I objected to. So here came the poem. He came at, and Durga, many of you will know, is a powerful goddess of India. He came at me in a fierce rage. I felt a small crack open in my forehead. Kali burst forth and struck him a fierce blow, and he was felled. Kali continued moving about the scene, devouring men high and low, and then I said, "Stop," not the Shaper. Her eyes strayed toward Emilia, and again I said, "Stop." With the place now cleared, but for the few left standing, Kali returned to slip inside my head. I went to the cupboard for rags and salt. I opened the closet for the mop and bucket, started running cold water. No idea what Iago or Emilia will do with themselves, but a woman needs to keep her attention on what she herself needs to do. Every good bloodbath must be followed by a scrub and rinse. A home is not a battlefield after all. So, A Night for the Lady, I did a couple of poems. Maybe I should read the short one first. There's a short kind of playful love poem, A Night for the Lady, Building Bridges. And I start off with a quote by Azar Nafizi, who said, "I always had a hankering for the security of impossible dreams." So the Suban, Maka, and Hanuman, these are lovers of long ago, from the time. Suban, Maka, and Hanuman, diving for joy, began in opposition. He charged with building the bridge to Lanka. She charged with keeping the waters open, running free. Do you feel pursued? Not nearly enough. They say the chase is better than the catch, but I disagree. The two blend. And here's a longer, deeper, and perhaps more miserable version, also called A Night for the Lady, Shahrazad Storyteller. My slave, my sister, leading me on by clever means to better things, in a house built of many rooms that spill, each one contained, conjoined, connected, all together across the mountainside, through the river bottomlands, deep in the wooded places, lost in the grass, covered in the daily falling snow, hidden in the shifting sands, dislocated, dissociated, linked. All along the backs of hands and minds, the living and the dead together sing rhapsody, monody, poetry, the whole world over, the whole world over, the whole world over. Stories spill and traverse the skins and permeate our lives. The sound of the horses arriving at a run, the abrupt end of the scream that slashes my heart, the rediscovered graves that now have sides in human eyes, in human ears, in living minds, the concussions of the bombs of the good. My slave, my slave, my sister, you who lead me on by clever means, better things await, a feast in the garden of our safekeeping. Grandmother's ancient laughter at the timing of this Thanksgiving. Transmission via peaceful means of the glory of the glory of the glory of our human being. My slave, my slave, my sister, I wrap the fabric round and round and round. I learn the arts of careful draping, how to balance the water on my head with the snake on the ground. How to balance the fathers of Nuliajuk, Kuan Yin, Matsu, with the guardians of the oceans of compassion, wherein you and I must swim and swim and swim, calling forth the children of tomorrow through these sacred, slippery, gateless gates of self, the sweat-damp limbs that part, allowing this one into self, this one in a linked but separate migration into the world. Allowing, not captured, not endangered, not callously overrun, not sundered by the sword of death, not split by the rule-bearing knuckles of angry brothers, not slashed with impunity, kill this and you kill the community, not slit and stitched with well-meaning fingers, not, just called forth, beckoned, called into the delicious warmth of safe harbor. Safe journey begins by surging out toward that which calls us in, gathering the nourishing harvest of all that we love. My slave, my sister, stories age and ages shift. Slave becomes sister, counselor becomes queen, the rise and the fall of the world freer, dismissed to diminutive roles, half forgotten, discounted. O world freer, remember where you come from. Remember upon whose body you sup. Remember the sound of her heartbeat and the deep, thrilling peace at the sound of her voice. My slave, my sister, mother of my heart, through all your many changes, there is none more beautiful than you. So that poem, it's very enjoyable to read. I feel like I'm being the priest at church. And what I had been researching was the frame story to the Arabian Nights, or 1001 Nights, and different versions told in many different places and different ways. I was very interested in the role of the storyteller as healer, but then I also got very interested in one version, there's the storyteller and this slave servant. In another older version, they're sisters. In another, you know what I mean? So just the shifting social roles and all that. And then, of course, my own content, which I will not footnote. Colin, I'm sure that you told me how long to read, but I have no memory of that.
He doesn't have a watch.
Okay. Similar kinds of people then. All right, well, when I hear the shuffling of the chairs and the coughing in the back, I'll know it's time to move along. That's right. We need our break. So Halfling Spring, an internet romance. Not going to say a whole lot about it because it's, I guess, more fun to read it and find out for yourself. But starts off in e-groups and eventually finds the way to the, what do you call the non-virtual world? The actual world? The mundane reality. Anyway. Right, I think I will start here. called Simple Happiness. There is someone in this world that my hands are interested in gently running across, in smoothing, in touching, in stroking, in getting to know. My hands have spoken. Keyboard, of course. My hands have spoken. My hands have let somebody know, and like the answers they received, now stored in my bones. My hands are happy, moving lightly across the tasks that fall to them. My hands have shaped a poem to celebrate this simple happiness. Flight risk. Already? No. That was it from that book, all right. This flight risk. He said he would like to trade. She spread out her shawl on the ground, began pulling out her handmade trinkets, laying them out one by one. She felt a shadow crossing the sun. Without looking up, hastily she began to gather her things, wings stirring, body already rising. One of the movements in the poems are Canadian geography, so there's a poem for Victoria, one or two from Winnipeg, Ottawa, and ending up in Iqaluit. I like to end with that poem, but I can read a poem or two on the way. But before I get there, I'll read this poem because it's amusing to me, and I hope to all of you also. It's called Delving. Some things are negotiable, we find. Some things simply are not. Holding hands is negotiable, for instance, whereas walking is not. Holding hands is negotiable for a lot of reasons. I know some people are very particular about where they place their hands and how comfortable or uncomfortable attempting to pace oneself alongside another self might be. I wouldn't want to throw off your stride or disorient you unduly. Holding hands is definitely negotiable. I have pockets. I have pockets, lots of pockets, some hidden, some not. I have pockets I am willing to give and take resources from. I have pockets I am only willing to turn out with a friend. Some of my pockets are deep, no end of delving these. You may dive in, swim for days or years, crawl to the rim for release, spooked or sated. Some pockets hold mystery. There are portals to ancient places. Some of these require sacrifice. Some of these will draw you in against your will. I see that, whether or not you would like to hold hands, you would like to see into these pockets. You would like to slip your fingertips along the edges of these pockets of mine, to test the texture and relative heat, to sample the scent, perhaps, on the edges of things. I see that, whether or not you would like to hold hands, you are hungry for me, you are full of thirst, you are alone in some precise way that only a visit all along the edges of my pockets can cure. I am like a ball pitched by a bored god. Pulled from a ragged pocket and tossed, I find myself traveling with purpose, at speed. Unerring and true, I am aimed at you. I am hungry for the taste, the shine of you. I am thirsty for the depths of the pools, the sea salt waters of you. I am more like a hungry infant bird than a grown woman. Yet I am more like a grown-up woman than a ball of any sort at all. When I was a girl, I adored the mystery of my grandmother's sweater pockets. Sometimes she would allow me to dip my little girl hands in to explore. Sometimes I had to ask. Sometimes I would find chiclets or a roll of mints, small change, crumpled tissues. Even an empty pocket was a space to investigate and at the very least held affection for me. Walking might be negotiable after all. Oh well, I don't know where that Ottawa poem went, so if it doesn't want to present itself. These two poems I wrote on an afternoon on my porch in Richmond, and it's a true story. Ornithological observations. It's called Crow Sex 1 and 2. On a morning gray, a crow calls in that specific voice she sometimes uses. Crow or cat or crow, I look to see. There on the sidewalk across the street, crow is fucking crow. I listen to her feline calls, watch as her crow friend dismounts. Alone on the porch in the suburb, what is all this to me? Crow Sex 2. Clouds part and the sun bathes the street again. I hear her, just one low crow moan. Midway up the evergreen, my side of the street this time, the rendezvous. A third crow descends, landing with a thump on the crow lovers' backs. The three stand along the limb, the new arrival standing vigil. The crow lovers apart, but connected. The three stand along the limb. She shows her chosen one a little tenderness. Banabi Kwe is a Anishinaabe, or it comes from an Anishinaabe story about a woman of the water, mermaid, freshwater mermaid, I guess. Banabi Kwe, they say, she was most beautiful, and he enjoyed her sensual attentions, and she did set him free. Banabi Kwe, they say, the two met upon the shore a year later, he of the land, she of the inland sea, and their tender, newly born halfling. So that is the halfling of Halfling Spring. And another halfling poem is called Halfling Bear Eclipse. The trophy hunter has it. The scientists and the media celebrate, debate, discuss. Photos of the corpse fly all around the world and linger for years. The miracle of courtship, alignment sought and found, the passing of a honeymoon, the wonder of apparent difference transcended with pleasure. The private rendezvous of polar bear and grizzly, followed by months of solitary gestation, of nurturing, nursing, feeding, teaching the young. All the years of a young bear's life, discoveries, missteps, accomplishments, the cultural patterning inhabited as taught by the mother, and the world met step by step, all these disappear into bloodlust and big money, DNA proofs and a too small sample. The death of a halfling bear reveals the minds of scientific observers and all forms of prejudice. Miscegenation, still so scandalous. This is not a freak show, but evidence of life unfolding and showing its shape as it goes. The elders say, usually they fight, but not this time. So I'm feeling like I'm coming close to the time, maybe 2 more poems. This poem, I finally found an Ottawa one. I didn't write Ottawa in the title, so next time. Or maybe there's, oh, there it is, okay. This poem is called Regarder. Water steadily slipping through the wood of the closed lock, the sound as soothing as any other sound in the world. If the heart stands open, gathering nuance and letting it flow, another idea is free to slide in with the solidity of a train pulling cattle cars filled with fear, filled with the fear of trapped people, doomed to life and death, all of us in our bodies and no hope of tearing free. Water in overflow, cascading from the top of the locked gate, gravity assists in making a balance. Conceptual walls like in a public place or over a lunch date demand some redirection. And so sorrow settles in. I drop food on its head, conversation slides across the top, a pair of water gliders. Knowing the depth is there, we make little vortexes with our feet and keep moving. When the water level drops and the lock is exposed, I feel afraid. I move to the edge of the walkway, face averted, stealing anxious glances at the long fall beside me. This is how I learn how much I trust the water. And I will end with a poem called Creation Story, a Calawit. Old bones in the backfield, scapula in dust, shards of pelvis. Lifted, dusted, brushed, reassembled into a perfect pitched vessel. Lifting the old woman parts, dreaming the flesh into place, and the big head babies passing through again. Tongue probing broken teeth in a mouth warm with saliva, breath whistling through, whistle shave from fibula, knuckles dance in my hand. Remaking the self from the vitality of the field, from minerals and wind, from starlight, sunlight, moonshine, weaving the eons forward and back, molding the lichen and moss into rock-piled mountains. The bony pleasure of a long hike around the bay and the deep, cold water penetrating the flesh of each leg, assembled well enough to carry a leather boot in each hand. Walk barefoot with me through the long afternoon, through the tidal shifting day, through the sleep-tossed night, boots left by the door of the house, bones deeply embedded in the soft turns of your flesh, ribs lightly dancing the rhythms of sleep, dreams unfurling on the inside, while dawn is slipping in. I have this night, basking in the warmth of your sleep heat, stirring against you and curling toward you, and breathing in the deep shelter of your arms. Thank you.